The first time I realized my parents had been inside my apartment without telling me, I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding. I came home from work exhausted, heels kicked off by the door, and the air felt off. My throw blanket was folded differently. The kitchen chair I always pushed in was pulled halfway out. My chest tightened in that quiet, instinctive way your body reacts before your brain catches up. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No texts. I walked room to room slowly, like the apartment might flinch if I moved too fast. Nothing was stolen, nothing was broken, but my bedroom drawer, the one where I kept old mail and documents, wasn't quite right. It stuck when you opened it. I knew that. That drawer had personality. Now it slid open too smoothly. I sat on the edge of the bed and laughed under my breath, the nervous kind. "You're being paranoid," I said out loud, because saying it silently wasn't convincing enough. I told myself my mom must have stopped by earlier in the week when I'd given her the spare key. She probably just wanted to leave soup or snoop a little. That's what she did. She snooped. It was annoying, but it was love, right? So I texted her. "Hey, did you stop by my place today?" 3 dots appeared instantly. 2 instantly. "Oh, yes, honey. Just checking in. You never answer your phone." I stared at the smiley face like it had teeth. "You could have told me," I typed. Another instant reply. "Why? We're family." That word, family, it always landed like a period at the end of a sentence I wasn't allowed to continue. I didn't argue. I didn't explain that I was 28, that I paid my own rent, that this place was the only thing that felt like mine. I just set my phone down and went to shower, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But it didn't stop. A week later, my bathroom cabinet was rearranged. A different brand of cereal sat on my shelf. My dad casually mentioned over Sunday dinner that my window latch was loose and I should really get that fixed. I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. "You saw my window?" He didn't even look up from his plate. "Yeah, when we stopped by." "When?" My mom waved her hand. "Oh, sometime Thursday. You were working late." Something in my chest snapped into clarity. They weren't checking in, they were monitoring. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound the building made. Pipes knocking, a door slamming somewhere below, footsteps in the hallway that weren't mine. I kept imagining my parents' key sliding into the lock while I slept, my mom's careful footsteps, my dad's cough, them standing over my life deciding what needed correcting. The next morning, I bought a camera. I didn't tell them. I mounted it discreetly on a shelf, angled toward the front door. I felt ridiculous doing it, like I was betraying them somehow, but the knot in my stomach loosened just a little when the app lit up green on my phone. 3 days later, while I was in a meeting at work, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I excused myself and stepped into the stairwell, heart pounding, and opened the feed. There was my mother unlocking my door like she owned it. My father followed, carrying a grocery bag. I watched them walk into my apartment, watched my mom wrinkle her nose at the shoes by the door, watched her pick one up and mutter something I couldn't hear, watched my dad head straight toward my bedroom. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down on the stairs. This wasn't concern. This wasn't love. This was entitlement. I called my mom immediately. She answered cheerfully. "Hi, sweetheart." "What are you doing in my apartment?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin and sharp. A pause. Too long. "Oh, we're just dropping off some food." "You didn't ask." "Well, we didn't think we had to." I swallowed. "Please leave, now." Another pause. Longer this time. My dad's voice murmured something in the background. My mom sighed. "You're being dramatic." "I'm serious. Get out." There was irritation now, naked and unhidden. "Fine, if that's how you want to be." The feed showed them leaving 10 minutes later. My mom slammed the door hard enough to rattle the camera. That should have been the end. It wasn't. They stopped telling me when they came by. They criticized the way I lived, things they could only know by being there. My mom asked why I'd stopped using a certain lotion. My dad mentioned the name on a piece of mail he'd seen on my counter. I changed the locks. When they found out, all hell broke loose. My mom cried on the phone, real crying, the kind that made my stomach twist. "How could you shut us out like that? What if something happened to you?" My dad was colder. That was unnecessary. We raised you better than this. Something in me hardened. Something in me hardened. You raised me to be independent. This is what that looks like. They didn't come by after that, for a while. I started noticing cars slowing near my building, my mom asking questions that felt like fishin'. Still working late on Tuesdays? You still park on the street? That was when the idea first flickered in my mind. Quiet, dangerous, relieving. What if I just left? Not dramatically. No confrontation, no goodbye speech. Just gone. I didn't tell my best friend. I didn't tell my coworkers. I found a new place across town under a different management company. I paid cash for the deposit. I forwarded my mail to a P.O. box. The day I moved, I waited until midnight. I packed my car in silence, every sound echoing too loud. When I locked the apartment door for the last time, my hands were steady. I didn't feel guilty. 3 days later, my phone exploded. Why aren't you answering? Are you home? The neighbors say your lights haven't been on. Call us now. I watched the messages stack up, my heart racing, a strange calm settling over me. I imagined them at my old door, key useless, knocking harder and harder. And for the first time in my life, they didn't know where I was. I didn't answer. Not yet. I stayed silent for 2 more days, and those were the quietest days I'd had in years. Not peaceful, quiet in the way snow muffles a city. My new apartment smelled like fresh paint and cardboard boxes. No memories clung to the walls yet, no expectations. Just me, a mattress on the floor, and the low hum of traffic outside the window that no one but me knew about. Then the voicemail came. It was my dad. His voice was tight, controlled in that way that meant panic was crouched just behind it. Call us, now. This isn't funny anymore. I didn't call. An hour later, my mom left one that sounded like she'd been crying for a long time. Sweetheart, please, we don't know where you are. The landlord says you moved out. Are you safe? Did someone hurt you? I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, face phone in my lap, breathing through the urge to explain myself. That urge was old, reflexive, the part of me that always wanted to smooth things over, to make sure they weren't uncomfortable, even if it cost me. I didn't give in. By day 4, they escalated. My coworker Jenna pulled me aside after lunch, her eyebrows knit together. Your parents called the office. My stomach dropped. They what? They asked if you'd been coming in. They sounded frantic. I felt heat crawl up my neck. What did they say? That you were fine, which you are, right? I nodded, forcing a smile that felt brittle. Yeah, I'm fine. That night, there was a knock on my new door. Not the polite kind, the kind that said whoever was on the other side expected to be let in. My heart slammed against my ribs. I checked the peephole. No one. I waited, barely breathing. Another knock, louder. I stepped back, phone in my hand, fingers hovering over the screen. My mind raced through possibilities. Had they followed me? Hired someone? Was this even them? Open the door, my dad's voice called out. We know you're in there. My knees almost buckled. How? I whispered to myself. I didn't answer. My mom's voice joined his, cracked and pleading. Please, honey, we just want to talk. I pressed my forehead to the wall, eyes squeezed shut. This was exactly what I was running from, the way they turned every boundary into a negotiation, every no into a challenge. You can't just disappear, my dad said sharply. This is ridiculous. I finally spoke, my voice steady by the tremor in my hands. You need to leave. A beat of stunned silence. We drove all the way across town. You owe us at least... I don't owe you access to my life, I said. The words surprised me with their weight. You broke into my apartment repeatedly. I moved because I didn't feel safe. That's insane, my dad snapped. We're your parents. And I'm an adult. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Another silence, heavy, loaded. I watched through the peephole as my mom grabbed my dad's arm, whispering urgently. He shook her off, jaw clenched, then leaned toward the door like he could will it open. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Maybe I was, but for the first time, it was my mistake to make. They left. I slid down the wall once their footsteps faded, tears burning my eyes. Not from sadness exactly, but from the adrenaline draining out of me,
from the realization that they had found me anyway, that disappearing wasn't enough. The next week was a blur of tension. I changed my routines, parked in different spots, took longer routes home. I felt watched, even when I knew I wasn't. Old habits die hard when you've spent your whole life under a microscope. Then the letter came. Not an email, not a text, a physical letter waiting in my P.O. box like a threat wrapped in paper. My mom's handwriting. I sat in my car and read it, hands shaking. She wrote about how worried they were, how hurt, how they didn't recognize me anymore, how family doesn't keep secrets, how my dad hadn't been sleeping, how neighbors were asking questions, how embarrassing this all was. That word again, embarrassing.
There it was. Not fear for me, fear of how it looked. At the bottom, in careful cursive, "We're coming by on Sunday. We need to resolve this." I laughed, a short, humorless sound. I didn't respond. Sunday came anyway. This time, I was ready. When the knocking started, I didn't freeze. I picked up my phone and dialed non-emergency, my voice calm as I explained that 2 people were refusing to leave my doorstep. Through the door, I heard my dad arguing, my mom crying. The officer arrived quickly. Apparently, I wasn't the first concerned daughter call they'd gotten about parents who didn't understand boundaries. I watched as the officer spoke to them, my dad's posture stiff, my mom dabbing her eyes. I didn't open the door. When it was over, they left without looking back. The silence afterward was different, deeper, real. That night, I slept through without waking once. I knew this wasn't over, not really. People like my parents didn't suddenly learn. They adapted, they waited, they found new ways in. But as I lay there, staring at a ceiling they'd never seen, I felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Control. And for the first time, I wondered what would happen next, not with fear, but with a quiet, dangerous curiosity. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight instead of dread. That alone felt unreal. For years, my phone had been my alarm clock and my anxiety trigger at the same time. Missed calls, "Why didn't you answer?" texts, voicemails that sounded sweet until you listened closely and heard the pressure hiding underneath. But that morning, my screen was quiet. No notifications, no red bubbles, just the time and my own reflection staring back at me. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt alert, like the calm before something breaks. I went to work trying to move through my day like a normal person. I laughed at the right moments, answered emails, made coffee, but every time someone walked past my desk, my shoulders tensed. Every unfamiliar number that rang somewhere in the office made my heart jump. Around 3 in the afternoon, my manager waved me into her office. She shut the door gently behind me, and that gentleness scared me more than if she'd slammed it. "Your parents came by again," she said. My chest tightened. "Here?" "Yes, about an hour ago." I sat down slowly. "What did they say?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "They said they were worried about your mental health, that you might be under a lot of stress. They asked if we'd noticed anything unusual." I felt something cold slide through me. "Did you tell them anything?" "No, of course not. I told them you're a good employee and that we can't discuss personal matters." I swallowed. "Did they believe you?" She gave me a look that said belief had never been the point. "They asked if you'd given notice, if you were planning to move, if you'd said anything about cutting contact." My hands curled into fists in my lap. "I didn't." "She knows," she said softly, "but I wanted you to be aware. This feels invasive." That word again, the one no one in my family ever used. Invasive. I thanked her and went back to my desk, but my focus was gone. My parents weren't just panicking anymore. They were reframing the story, recasting themselves as concerned heroes, and me as the unstable daughter who'd suddenly changed. They were laying groundwork. That night, I didn't go straight home. I walked for almost an hour, letting the city blur around me. I needed space to think, to breathe,
to remind myself that I wasn't imagining this pattern. I'd lived it my entire life. When I finally unlocked my door, something was wrong. The air felt disturbed, not broken into, no splintered wood, no obvious mess, but off, like someone had stood there recently and left an echo behind. I stepped inside slowly. The first thing I noticed was the window. Unlocked. I knew I'd locked it. I always locked it. I checked it twice before leaving that morning. My pulse roared in my ears as I scanned the room. Nothing missing, nothing moved, but the certainty sat heavy in my gut. They'd been here. I locked the window, then the door, then leaned against it, breathing hard. My hands were shaking now, no matter how much I told myself I was safe. That was the moment something in me shifted, not into fear, but into resolute. I sat at my small kitchen table and opened my laptop. I started documenting everything: dates, times, voicemails, screenshots, witnesses, work visits, the officer's name from Sunday, every innocent thing they'd done that added up to something much darker when placed side by side. As I typed, memories surfaced uninvited. My mom rearranging my childhood bedroom because I know what works better. My dad reading my journal and calling it concern. Them showing up unannounced to apartments before this one, using spare keys I didn't remember giving. This wasn't new behavior. I'd just stopped accepting it. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Please don't do this. Families don't treat each other like strangers." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed back, slowly, deliberately. "I asked you to stop coming to my home and workplace. If you continue, I'll take legal steps. This is your only warning." I didn't wait for a response. I turned my phone off. That night, I slept with a chair wedged under the doorknob, not because I thought they'd break in again, but because I needed my body to feel protected, even if my mind already was. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just about space anymore. It was about control slipping through their fingers. And people don't let go of control quietly. They fight for it. The only question was how far they were willing to go and how much of myself I was willing to risk to finally stop running.
The panic didn't explode right away. It crept. 2 days passed, then 3. No calls, no texts, no surprise appearances. The silence was so unnatural, it felt staged, like the pause in a movie right before the jump scare. I kept my phone on airplane mode and focused on logistics, closing this chapter cleanly, quietly, on my terms. I moved faster than I ever had in my life. New apartment, different part of the city, different building style, no doorman who could be talked into sharing information, no landlord with a soft spot for concerned parents. I paid extra for privacy, for a deadbolt that felt like it meant something, for walls that didn't echo with old habits. Moving day came on a Thursday morning. I carried boxes down the stairs alone, each one lighter than it should have been, like I'd already been letting go for months without realizing it. When I handed in my old keys, my hands didn't shake. That surprised me most of all. By the time the sun set, my old apartment wasn't mine anymore. Not physically, not emotionally. I didn't tell them. I told no one who might tell them. That night, I sat on the floor of my new place, eating takeout from the container, surrounded by boxes I hadn't opened yet. The quiet wasn't tense here. It was neutral, untouched, like the space didn't know me yet and wasn't trying to. Then I turned my phone back on. 27 missed calls, voicemails stacked on top of each other like waves. I didn't listen to them right away. I didn't need to. I could already imagine the progression. Confusion, hurt, anger disguised as worry, worry sharpened into accusation. An hour later, there was a knock at my old apartment door. I know because my neighbor texted me, "Hey, your parents are outside your place. They've been ringing nonstop. Are you okay?" I stared at the message, my pulse steady instead of racing. "They're saying they're scared something happened to you. Your mom is crying." I closed my eyes. Not out of guilt, out of clarity. They weren't scared for me. They were scared of not knowing where I was. I typed back, "I'm safe. I moved. Please don't share anything else." A few minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered this one. "Where are you?" my dad demanded, skipping every pretense. "I'm safe," I said calmly. "You can't just disappear," my mom cut in, her voice trembling but sharp underneath. "Do you know what you're doing to us?" "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said. There was a pause. Then my dad again, colder now. "You're acting unstable." I almost laughed. Almost. "I asked you to stop entering my home and showing up at my job. You didn't. I warned you." "So you punish us?" my mom said. "Is that what this is?" "No," I replied. "This is me choosing peace." They started talking over each other then. Guilt, anger, disbelief. I let it wash past me like noise from another apartment, present but no longer my responsibility. "I won't be sharing my address," I said, when there was a gap. "If you come looking for me, I'll file a report. This conversation is over." I hung up before they could pull me back in. My hands were steady. That's how I knew it was real. Later that night, sitting by my new window, city lights flickering below, I realized something that felt almost dangerous in its simplicity. They were panicking because they'd lost access, and I wasn't panicking at all. I don't know what they'll do next. I don't know if this is the end or just the first real boundary I've ever enforced. I don't know how long the quiet will last before they try a new angle, a new story, a new way in. But for the first time, the uncertainty doesn't terrify me, because whatever comes next, it's coming to a door they don't have a key to anymore. And if this story hit you, if you've ever felt watched instead of loved, controlled instead of cared for, stick around. Tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because there are more stories like this coming. Some end cleanly,